Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'm going to work on a company I don't know, for some reason I've become infatuated with. It's Langley. And Langley was an aluminum fabrication company that, as the war evolved in the 1940s, started building frames for aircraft. And when the war ended, they switched their manufacturing over to fishing reels with the fabrication that they knew about, and ultimately they were acquired by Zebco in the late 50s, and Zebco used their spinning reels for a while, and then the Langley brand went away. But Langley, this is the Cast Rite Model 380A, and I found this one on eBay for less than $10. Cost me some shipping after that, but I don't remember exactly what it was. But I thought we would use this as a YouTube project, show you how these reels were made and how to service one of these if you happen to have them. I believe this is aluminum, I believe this is rubber, and this is painted aluminum on this side. It works. So what are we hearing in here? We're hearing a noise, but you know what? Checking by that line here, that's linen line, multicolor linen line. My guess is that that line has probably been on here for 20 years, 30 years, that this reel is dead dry, and with a little bit of lubrication this thing is going to be able to go fishing again. And there's a lot of folks still use these reels. These reels can pull up catfish, big catfish. Folks don't think about that, but this has got all the power you need in a fishing reel. So let's get started. And I'd like to get started by thanking our first responders, thanking those that are out there helping us get through this pandemic and doing their best to take care of us during these tough times. And whether that's the essential personnel, that they're making sure that we have all of the products that we need to survive, whether that's the EMTs and healthcare workers, fire and police, all of the folks that are just involved in trying to stop the transmission of this, healthcare workers and doctors and nurses and nursing home staff and the like. Thank you for all it is that you do. And if you're watching, geez, I kind of feel honored that you're taking what free time you have and watching one of my videos. So thank you for that as well. All right, I removed the cap screw. You'll notice a couple of things while we do this. I wear a protective glove to keep the junk off my hands. And I take the pieces and parts and I put them into a parts tray, which is nothing more than the bottom of a milk jug. And that way I know where to go to find them when it's time to reinstall. Because if you lose one of these pieces of parts on an old reel like this, your chances of making that reel work again are slim, and the chances of finding a replacement part are not very good. All right, here we go. We're going to take this side plate off first. There's 3 screws that are holding the side plate together. I can tell there's 2 more screws here. I believe that's holding the gear assembly on, but we'll see. All right, and take the 3 out. And I like to look and check the screws that I'm taking out to make sure that they're the same size and diameter and length and everything else, because there's a chance that they're not, but these 3 are. So they will go into my bucket, and if we can't remove that now, we're going to guess that we need to remove these 2. So let's go ahead and do that. There's one. So I believe that one, those 3 are just holding this trim ring on at the moment. And this one's actually holding the reel to the side plate. And these are also the same size screws, so don't worry if you commingle them. And this is tight, and it's tight because let's do it this way. We're going to take the shield off. That shield is holding on our direct drive. There's no drag washers in this assembly. And then what I'm having some little difficulty wrestling with here is just how it's mounted onto the side plate. So sometimes just gently prying this. Let's see if I can pull that off the shaft. That's probably a little bit easier. You can sometimes walk it off. I can see it's right here. So let's just see if we can't just work that up a little bit. There we go. That'll take your side plate off. And just remember the sequence. Take pictures along the way if you're wondering how this works. For example, we took this from here, and I can just feel that is about as gummy as it can possibly get, which means at one point in time this was working nicely, and then all the stuff just dried on the shaft there, and you can see it pretty easily. It's just thick and solid. We can use a cotton swab just to show you what you got coming off of there, and it's just, well, it's a mess. All right. Inside then we have the rubber cap, which we were saying is probably what it was. And again, we have a little bit of stickiness on this one post here, so just gently pry that off. Again, you don't want to break anything. We have our line guide, the worm, line guide and worm. This is working nicely. This is just going to need a little bit of oil to make that work. And we have a spool. That's it. And there's no burring on the other side. That's just a solid set there. And we have a very nice strong point. Should we need a clicker, you can possibly see that we have a nice tempered point on there that would work on a click here. So some folks will wonder why I pulled that spool. Well, you just want to make sure that that little collar back there, first of all, you want to make sure it's all clean in here, which it is. This is an aluminum spool. I would expect nothing less from an aluminum manufacturer. But it's an aluminum spool. You want to check to make sure you don't get dirt there, or don't have dirt there, and then you want to just get a nice healthy dose of grease onto the stud before you reinstall. And you can put it in here as well. This is removable. If you just wanted to service without taking the whole wheel apart, you can pull that cover there and put the grease in that way. Okay, just gonna, later I am going to pull the line off of this. I would never go fishing with line that's 30 years old, although it would probably work just fine. I'm going to reseat that. You have the spool and the gear. This gear might be removable. It is. It's kind of just sticky, but that gear doesn't serve any purpose. It's not controlled by a free spool release, so it really doesn't matter too much that if it was stuck on there, you don't have to fight it off. What you do need to do is clean it. So I'm getting some of that out. I'm going to actually use a penetrating oil just to loosen some of that grease. And then I'm using the point of a pick. You could use a toothpick. You can use a safety pin. Anything that can get in that channel just to clear that old grease out. Now we do know when we were reeling this that it had a little bit of, I need some oil squeaking, the old squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? Gets the grease, whatever. But if you wanted to, you want to make sure that you got this thing as clean as you can get it. I've used a pick, but you could also use something like this as a soft bristled brush. And if Cons is listening, which he probably is, you can use an Oral-B toothbrush and some flicks. And that'll polish that thing right up. And yes, Cons, I am going to show that when I get a chance. I know. Sort of like, yeah. All right, I'm going to put that spool gear back on. There's a shoulder on this one, an indentation, and that goes to the back of the spool, and it seats over the ridge there. I'm going to make sure that we get some grease onto the worm drive. You do not need to remove that worm drive. This is in clean condition. You can. We'll see if we can move this. The button we can. Great. This shield is holding in the pawl. So take that, loosen it up. You saw how it fell down a little bit there. I'm going to use trying to keep the assembly together here as best I can. This is your line guide pawl. You can pull that out. And other than it just being a lot of kind of tarnish to it, it's in good condition. So I'm just going to put some oil on there. And that's what usually goes with these old reels. You usually find you have a broken pawl, one of the forks in it is not no longer on there, broken off. And when you get that broken fork, you basically have to replace the pawl. And if it's an old reel like this, generally you can't find a pawl. Alright, so we've oiled that. I'm going to make sure that we're in good condition with that. Here's your shield. Put that back. Alright, so we stopped the video just because you don't need to watch me try and struggle with these small screws. But you get your screw in, tighten it down, make sure that the plate seats below the ridge. And make sure when you turn your worm gear that it's operable. Sometimes those forks in that pawl get stuck unevenly, and there you go. Now because you have that exposed, you didn't have to go through all that I just did. You can simply put a drop of oil on there. I'm also going to oil the worm gear at this point, and I'm going to just give it a test here, make sure it's working okay, which it is. Having done that, then we can start with some of the reassembly. I'm going to clean up this rubber. Actually, if it is rubber, it's a very hard rubber. I think it is rubber though. That would be a material from the 40s and 50s rather than the plastics, but it could be plastic. This is going to sit this way, give you the opening for the worm drive, just like that. We've got the backing plate. We want to make sure that's clean. You already saw that we had a terrible amount of hardened grease on that axle shaft, or bridge shaft, so let's make sure that that gets cleaned off. And I start with the least abrasive that I can. I like to use things like the paper towels, the cotton swabs and the like. And if we need to get a little bit more aggressive, here's a blade of a screwdriver, for example, to try and clean out some of that. Some of that may actually just be tarnish. No, a lot of it's dried grease. All right, and then I can go to like a steel wool. So we're going to shut this down for a moment, do some more cleaning here. All right, so I've done the dishes. Always interested in historical notes. So they finished after World War II. I wonder if they had extra paint left over from Navy planes and just decided to paint these gray. Could be. We don't know. All right, let's grab the spool. Put the spool back in now that we've serviced that back end of it and got the pawl done properly. Next up then, we've cleaned up the bridge. Let's go ahead and make sure that we get some good lubrication on that shaft. We had everything was dry before. On the back of the main gear, we got the drive that's going to move the worm gear through that little slot there. Let's get that nice and greased up. Probably the first time in 20 or 30 or 40 years. And then let's make sure that we get the grease onto the teeth that's going to drive the spool. There's a hair that came out of the brush, which is why generally I don't like using the brush, and I guess we get a little bit on the back side of this. Everything's all lubed up then. Let's go ahead and put the shaft together. Notice that there's a little ring, a little washer that goes on that main gear. All right, then we can seat this in. Get those aligned properly. Boy, it went on a whole lot easier than it came off, didn't it? There we go, there's that little snap. Now we've got the bushing and the little spool carrier, so let's get that kind of greased up inside there on both. And again, if you just kind of lubing this, you don't have to take the whole reel apart. You can pull this one out as well. This is going to sit properly here, and then the two screws are going to hold that tight, and then the three screws on the outside are going to be the hole tight there. So pretty interesting reel all around. But the key is it going to go any smoother, and is it going to be any quieter? I think the answer to that is yes, just because looking at this reel, we've seen that it's a quality made reel, quality parts inside of it. And one of the things I'm enjoying here is that these screws have a kind of almost an offset. I forget what they call it in machine tool technology, but the first tip of this does not have thread on it, so it kind of seats easily, and then you can drive it down. I'm sure right now the suspense is killing us. So what have we done? We've cleaned the reel. That's basically what we've done. There hasn't been any broken parts noted. There was a lot of dried grease, which took effort to clean. There was a pawl that we removed, and we certainly made sure that that got its oils, and the line guide assembly. But everything else seemed to be mechanically good. So the only thing left then is installing the handle and giving it a test drive. And because we've re-lubed now, this reel may be tight, because I suspect without lube that both of these spool adjusters, bearings or bushings, whatever is inside of those, I suspect that those are overpacked now, and we may need to loosen them back up. I don't know why I'm struggling with this little screw here, but I am. Okay, tighten them all down once you have them all in. And just back those bearings off here. Man, that one's down tight. There we go. All right, handle. Look at that, huh? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I just heard a second snap, which usually means that something was off there. All right, and then just the cap screw goes on. Cap nut. And interestingly, even the knobs on the handle here are aluminum. So I guess if you're an aluminum fabricator, like Langley was, makes all the sense in the world. Why not make your knobs aluminum as well? And of course, it's going to do a good job of not having corrosion on it. So let's put a little bit of grease on that, and let's see what we got. Wow, look at that. Now, of course, this is an there is no dog. This is two-directional. It's what we used to call the knuckle busters from a casting perspective. If you're letting line out, the spool is going to spin in the opposite direction. And if you're coming back in, you do this way. If you want that spool to really spin, you back off the spool adjusters. If you want less risk of backlash, you tighten them down. But overall, this is a nice little reel, and that's why I've become something of a fan of the Langley post-war reels. So we just celebrated the end of World War II. It was in September of 1945. It's 75-year anniversary. So this reel, given the histories that we just talked about, is anywhere from 60 to 75 years old. And boy, it works like a champ. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please like it. If you have any questions or comments about this particular reel or any reel in general, if you're stuck on a service project and you need a little help getting unstuck, I can try to help you out with that if you leave it in the comment section. I do try to reply to all. And if you want to see more of these videos, by all means, please subscribe. I'm marching towards 10,000 subscribers. Your help is appreciated. Please, if you haven't subscribed in the past, please sign up for the subscriptions. That way you won't miss any of the videos that I post, and it'll help me along with my channel as well. So finally, if you have a reel that needs to be serviced and repaired, and you're interested in me providing that service, I do it by mail in addition to the folks that are local. And just contact me via the email on the business card that follows, and I'll be happy to provide you with that service information. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.